up? It's Richie here with your Saturday previews. I did Thursday, I did Friday previews for week 1 for college football. I did the Labor Day ones on Sunday and Monday. Now it's the Saturday. This is the long haul. First game, jump into Florida Atlantic at Ohio State. Florida Atlantic they lost running back Devin Singletary. They're adding Florida State quarterback DeAndre Francois. Ohio State's got a new head coach, Ryan Day. Transfer quarterback in Justin Fields. They only have 4 starters returning on their offense. But one of them is running back J.K. Dobbins, had over 1,000 yards. Defensive end Chase Young had like 10.5 sacks. They're losing quarterback Dwayne Haskins and wide receiver Paris Campbell. This could be a pretty big upset. I really want to go Florida Atlantic. I think everybody's overlooking this game. I think Ohio State fans don't realize how good Urban Meyer is as a coach and how much they're losing on that offense. Ohio State, I guess, wins, but this could be a pretty big upset. Iowa State playing 1AA Northern Iowa. Iowa State is 16 returning starters, 8 on offense, 8 on defense. They lose running back David Montgomery. They lose wide receiver Hakeem Butler, but they got a pretty good quarterback in Brock Purdy coming back. Defensive end Jaquan Bailey had like 7 or 8 sacks last year. Iowa State should win that. South Alabama, Nebraska. South Alabama, they lost their quarterback. They have a pretty decent running back in Trey Minter. He was a second team Sun Belt running back, but that's all they got. They don't really have anything. Nebraska, he was a true freshman quarterback. Adrian Martinez, one of the best. They're losing Stanley Morgan, the first 1,000-yard receiver in Nebraska history. They're losing Devine Ozigbo, a 1,000-yard rusher. But they have linebacker Mohamed Berry, over 100 tackles. They had wide receiver / punt returner J.D. Spielman. J.D. Spielman was on his way to 1,000 yards and he got hurt. He had like 800 something receiving. He had a punt return for a touchdown. Nebraska, I'm already picking it. They're going to win the Big Ten outright. So Nebraska wins that one. Akron, Illinois, and Akron versus Illinois. Akron has got a new head coach in Tom Arth. Quarterback Cato Nelson is pretty decent. Their linebacker John Lacka is pretty good, but and Illinois kind of sucks. So they got Michigan quarterback transfer Brandon Peters, which is an upgrade on their quarterback situation, and their quarterback Andrew Richards transferred out. And their other quarterback, I can't remember his name, but he graduated. They got Reggie Corbin back at running back, had over 1,000 yards rushing. Defensive end Bobby Roundtree had 7.5 sacks. Neither team would be very good, I don't think, but Illinois should at least win this one. All right, Indiana, you got quarterback Peyton Ramsey, running back Stevie Scott ran for 1,000 yards. Kicker Logan Justice is a good kicker. They're playing Ball State. Their running back James Gilbert transferred out. Their quarterback Riley Neal transferred to Vanderbilt. He's out. Their quarterback Drew Plitt isn't bad. They have another returning running back. Let me be sure. 309 page. Yeah, Caleb Huntley. He ran for 1,000 yards a couple of years ago. They got a really good receiver. Riley Miller had 878 yards, 7 touchdowns. But I think I got Indiana winning that one. All right, Howard is playing Maryland. Maryland, they have Virginia Tech quarterback Josh Jackson transferring, running back Anthony McFarland had over 1,000 yards, and they add in Buffalo's tight end Tyler Mabry, who was the first team MAC guy. Maryland should win that. Indiana State taking on Kansas. Kansas got head coach Les Miles. They got running back Puka Williams, who is a freshman. I think last year ran for well over 1,000 yards. He's pretty. That's a pretty good one. So I'll go Kansas in that opener. All right, this one's interesting. Toledo and Kentucky. Kentucky's losing running back Benny Snell. They're losing linebacker Josh Allen. They're losing their safety Mike Edwards. Their quarterback is coming back. He should be okay. But they're losing a lot. Toledo now is losing their top 3 receivers. They have a pretty good running back in Koback. Their quarterback situation is good. Eli Peters and Mitchell Guadani, both starters. Like last year, both doing really well. Toledo knows usually how to put an offense together. This may be an upset. I'll go Kentucky here, but Toledo, Kentucky will be a good one. Ole Miss and Memphis, I expect this to be a shootout. Ole Miss, they do lose their running back and like all their receivers. They have a running back, Scotty Phillips, who ran for 928. Mohamed Sanago, linebacker, had over 100 tackles. Memphis, they are losing running back Darrell Henderson, who would have run for 2,000 yards. He ran for 1,909, but he decided to sit out the bowl game. But the quarterback Brady Whiteback had like 25 touchdown passes, and running back Patrick Taylor ran. He was the backup running back and ran for 1,000 yards himself, over 1,100 yards actually. And wide receiver DeMonte Cox, he had over 1,000 yards receiving. They have defensive end Bryce Huff had 9.5 sacks. This game, I think with the picks, I can't remember who I picked. I think Memphis a win. It could be a shootout, but it'd be a little bit of an upset for you people thinking that, UCF doesn't play anybody, and look at what they did the last two seasons, 3 games against Memphis. Look at how close those games were, and when Memphis wins this game, you're like, oh yeah, they did play somebody, morons. Anyway, Mississippi State taking on Louisiana. Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They played for the Sun Belt Championship last year. They won 7 games. Mississippi State, they're losing their quarterback Fitzgerald. They have a transfer in from Penn State, quarterback Tommy Stevens, which is interesting because Joe Moorhead, the head coach at Mississippi State, he was the offensive coordinator of the last few years at Penn State. And Moorhead was the first-time head coach at Mississippi State last year. Now you got the Penn State quarterback coming in. Mississippi State is losing 3 guys, 3 first-round draft picks from that defense alone, 2 linemen and a safety, taking on Louisiana. Now the Raging Cajuns, they're losing their quarterback Andre Nunez, but he spent a lot of time with Levi Lewis, and Levi Lewis I think will be fine. But the thing is here, and let me go to that, because Louisiana may have one of the best running back cores in the nation. Definitely in the Sun Belt, mostly in the Group of 5, and maybe in the round. You got Here's some statistics for you. You got Trey Ragas, 1,181 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. Elijah Mitchell, 985 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, and then Raymond Calais, 754 rushing yards. And 7 touchdowns. So you have 1,100 yard rusher, a nearly 1,000 yard rusher, and a 750 yard rusher, all back. So that'll be tough. And with Mississippi State losing their defensive lineman, that could be tough for them to stop. Maybe I'm still going Mississippi State here, but that'll be kind of might slide under people's radar. All right, East Carolina and NC State. East Carolina's got a new head coach. They lose the wide receiver, Trevon Brown. They're losing defensive end Nate Harvey, but their quarterback Holton Ahlers is pretty decent. NC State, they have 4 guys returning on offense, and they're losing a 3,000-yard passer in Ryan Finley, 2 1,000-yard receivers in Kelvin Harmon, and I forget the other guy, and 8,000-yard rusher. NC State, basically, their kicker, Christopher Dunn, I wrote down, 23 to 26. He might be all they have early on. Everybody's going to overlook East Carolina, especially NC State fans and the NC State players, because NC State thinks, we're in the ACC, we can sometimes beat FSU and beat Clemson or play with them. We're really good. You're not. You're not that much better than East Carolina. I'm picking East Carolina to outright upset win. Hey, James Madison taking on West Virginia. West Virginia head coach Neil Brown coming over from Troy. They won 10 games each of the last 3 years, including 2 years ago against LSU at LSU. West Virginia has 2 transfers coming in at quarterback, Austin Kendall from Oklahoma and Jared Agee from Bowling Green. But they only have 9 total starters. It won't matter for this game, I don't think. I think West Virginia wins, but it might matter the rest of the year. You got Rhode Island taking Ohio. Ohio's got the Canadian Tim Tebow, Nathan Rourke. And let me read you why I say that. Because he's been starting the last 2 years there. And I have to bring back what he did 2 years ago. But last year, he passed for 24, 34, 23 touchdowns, ran for 860 and 15 touchdowns. And then 2 years ago, he had like 21 rushing touchdowns and 900 plus yards rushing. So that's why I say he's the Canadian Tebow. And I think they win. They're a MAC favorite in this one. All right, you got Eastern Washington taking on Washington Huskies. Eastern Washington is usually one of the best teams in the FCS, or formerly 1AA division. They've beaten these Pac-12 teams before. So Washington, they're starting over. Jacob Eason, their 4-year quarterback's gone. Myles Gaskin, their top running back, I think all time there, or one of the top, he's gone. They lost some guys. They lost their linebacker Ben Burke-Herman, who led the nation with 176 tackles. Or if he didn't lead, he was like one of the top ones anyway. That being said, I still think Washington should win this, but that'll be interesting. That'd be a pretty damn big upset because Washington is ranked. Got Bucknell taking on Temple. I got Temple with that one. They got a new head coach, Rod Carey, who was at Northern Illinois the last few years and won a lot of games with them. So I think Temple will be fine. And they're losing their running back, Reckwell Armstead, who ran for 1,000 yards, but they got nose tackle Michael Dogby back, who had 7 sacks, so they'll be all right. They should win. I didn't even write anything down for Duke and Alabama because Duke lost their only player that was any good, Daniel Jones, and I'll take that bet. They got a pretty good running back, Deion Jackson. Quentin Harris will be a decent quarterback, but Alabama. Tua Tagovailoa might win the Heisman. Jerry Jeudy might win the Biletnikoff Award again. They got all the running backs ever. They got all the players. Alabama wins that one pretty easily. All right, Idaho taking on Penn State. Penn State lost their quarterback they lost their running back in Miles Sanders and their quarterback in why do I gotta look this up? Trace McSorley, right? Yeah, Trace McSorley. But they got their defensive end back, Yetur Gross Matos. I guess that's how you say that name. He had 8 sacks last year. Keep this name in mind. Micah Parsons. He was a true freshman. He was like the best linebacker in the country coming in last year. As a true freshman, he I think it was last year. Yeah, he won. Micah Parsons, despite starting just one game, was the first true freshman to lead the Nittany Lions in tackles with 83 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, and 5 quarterback hits. He'll be a first-round pick in a couple of years. Colgate, by the way, Penn State, I think, wins that one. Colgate taking on Air Force. I expect Air Force to come back this year, make a bowl. They normally do. They just missed it 5-7. They got 2 quarterbacks they can go back and forth with. In the triple option safety, Jeremy Foothead-Dellum is one of the better ones in the Mountain West. So I got Air Force there. Holy Cross taking on Navy again. Navy quarterback / running back Malcolm Perry. They're going to stick with him this year, all year at quarterback. He's a 1,000-yard rusher each of the last 2 years. They tanked last year to 3-10. I think they probably make a bowl or flirt with bowl eligibility this year again, and so they should win this one. All right, one of the more interesting games. One of the more games I'm interested in: Eastern Michigan and Coastal Carolina. I know a lot of you don't know. Eastern Michigan is the MAC team. Coastal Carolina is a Sun Belt team. Eastern Michigan, they lost their quarterback Weigers, but they have a quarterback Mike Glass who. So they went 6-6, and he won the bowl game for them as the backup last year. And Coastal Carolina just missed off their first bowl game. They moved up to the 1A like 3 years ago, and they just missed out last year. They were this close. They play on a teal field. Look it up, Coastal Carolina football field. It's beautiful. They got 2 quarterbacks back that should be pretty well. They have a kicker, Massimo Biscardi. What kind of name is that? 13 or 16. And I bring that up because this is the kind of game, Eastern Michigan especially, man, the last 3 years, dude, like last year, 5 of their 6 losses were by a touchdown or less, I think. And 2 years ago, like 6 of their 7 losses or whatever, like 3 went to overtime and the other one by like a touchdown or less. Like, they were this close to like making multiple bowls in a row and losing so this is the kind of game. Eastern Michigan, the way they play, barely getting bowl eligible, 6-6 last year, coming back to win late. Coastal Carolina just missing on a bowl game. One win would have gotten them in. One more win, and so it could come down to a kicker here. You know, you got a good kicker. It's in Coastal Carolina. Even though this is the first game of the year, these teams, like I said, their margin for error is razor thin. This could be the difference between one of them going bowling and one of them not. If at the end of the year, if whoever wins this game is 6-6 and the other one's 5-7, that was this game, you know, and that could be what it comes down to. I think I picked Eastern Michigan to win, but it really could go to like that kicker. It could go to the last second. All right, South Carolina taking on North Carolina. North Carolina, welcome back Mac Brown, former Texas coach, and he was the North Carolina coach in the mid-90s before he went to Texas, and he won a lot of games there. South Carolina got quarterback Jake Bentley back, linebacker T.J. Brunson. North Carolina, I think, went 2-9, something like that last year. They had a game canceled. They should have won more, or at the very least, they were close in a lot of games where they could have won more. So I think they will be much improved this year. I don't think it'll show quite this game. I'm going to South Carolina here, but it's an interesting Carolina rivalry, Southern kind of mini rivalry, whatever. They're in two different conferences, but that'll be pretty interesting. I'll go South Carolina. All right, Georgia State from the Sun Belt taking on Tennessee. Tennessee's got quarterback Derek Guarantano back. Linebacker Darrell Taylor had 8 sacks. And they should win this. I'm still not sold on Jeremy Pruitt yet on Tennessee. He was like their 50th whatever head coach decision a couple years ago. Georgia State has a pretty good quarterback, Dan Ellington. They lose wide receiver Penny Hart. So, Dan Ellington could keep them in it for a little bit, but that should be a Tennessee game. All right, you got East Tennessee State and Appalachian State. I didn't even write anything down because Appalachian State, they just win games, and they'll probably win the Sun Belt again this year, and they should run away with that. One of the better quarterbacks in the Sun Belt, one of the best running backs in the group of 5, so they'll win. All right, the smart guy game. Northwestern and Stanford, the alternate dimension game. If I'm not mistaken, Northwestern is ranked 25th in one poll, and Stanford is 25th in another, I believe. You got Northwestern. They're losing their top passer of all time, Clayton Thorson, their top winner of all time. But they got a Clemson quarterback, Hunter Johnson, coming in. They have linebackers Blake Gallagher and Patty Fisher. They just tackle. Let me give you some stats for what those guys do. And Northwestern usually plays a really good defense. Blake Gallagher, 127 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 2 quarterback hurries. Patty Fisher, 116 tackles, 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, and 1 interception. So that's what Northwestern has going for them. Stanford, they only have 9 starters back, 4 in offense. KJ Costello is a 3,000 whatever yard passer. They have a good kicker in Jet Toner, who was 14 of 15. They're losing running back Bryce Love. They're losing wide receiver / tight end JJ Arcega-Whiteside. And let me show you the stats KJ Costello had, because a lot of people don't realize he's a passer, and he passed for 3,540, 29 touchdowns to 11 picks. But they're losing a lot of guys. I think they went Stanford with this, but this could go to the right to the end. And their kicker for Northwestern, Kubander, he was only 5 for 9 on field goals. So if it's a close game, back and forth kind of game, and you got a kicker that was 14 of 15 versus a kicker that was 5 of 9, one miss loses it, one make wins it. You don't know. So that'll be a pretty good non-conference game. All right, Portland State taking on Arkansas. Arkansas is pretty bad, although they do have a transfer. Nick Starkel and Ben Hicks. That's interesting to me because Ben Hicks started the last couple of years at Southern Methodist, which is where Arkansas head coach was the head coach there before, Chad Morris. So you got a guy there that knows this offense. He could step in, put in some decent numbers. So we'll see about this game. But I don't expect a lot of Arkansas this year. I just expect them to win that one. Montana State, 1AA taking on Texas Tech. Texas Tech has a quarterback, Alan Bowman, who was really good last year. He got hurt, but he put up Texas Tech numbers. They got a new head coach in Matt Wells, who led Utah State last season to 11 wins and the number 2 scoring offense in the country. So he should be able to do what Texas Tech does with throwing the ball around and put up some numbers, some fun numbers there. They are losing their best top wide receiver in Antoine Wesley, though. But that shouldn't matter for this one. All right, you gotta, these week 1 games usually are a bunch of, non-conference matchups, but the ACC seems to have it this weekend. Virginia Tech taking on Boston College. You got Virginia Tech quarterback Ryan Willis. Let me pull up these stats because Ryan Willis last year had 2,716 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. They got Damon Hazleton back at receiver coming back. Rashad Ashby, 105 tackles, 1 sack, 8.5 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, 6 quarterback hurries. Virginia Tech was terrible on defense last year, which is not like Virginia Tech. Bud Foster, the defensive coordinator there, he's been the defensive coordinator there for like 25 years now. And that was their worst defense last year. Expect them to be good. They have 10 starters on that defense alone returning. They will be much, much better. But Boston College has one of the best running backs in the nation in A.J. Dillon. And he ran for 1,108 yards last year. This will be interesting. I think I went with Virginia Tech, but these kind of teams usually play pretty good defense, usually run the ball well. Special teams could be a difference maker. And it looks like Boston College is starting over at their kicker, while Virginia Tech, their kicker is 12 of 18, so he's okay. It's not bad. I think I went Virginia Tech here, but that'll be a really good early conference ACC game. All right, Syracuse and Liberty. I said this in my picks. I don't know why Syracuse is ranked. They lost their quarterback, Eric Dungey. They lost a bunch of guys. They ain't 22 in the country. They might make a bowl. They're playing Liberty, though. And y'all don't know who Liberty is. I get it. They just moved up to 1A a couple years ago. They got a new head coach named Hugh Freeze, and any of you Ole Miss fans remember that when they had those awesome offenses a couple years ago? So he's at Liberty, and let me read you some stats about these Liberty players. All right, you got Steven Buckshot. Yep, his nickname is Buckshot Calvert. Last year, 3,068 yards, 21 touchdowns, 18 picks. Yeah, kind of high, but 2 years ago he passed for like 3,000 yards, like 29 touchdowns. Then you got Antonio Gandy Golson, 1,037 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns. He had over 1,000 yards 2 years ago as well. And you got a running back named Frankie Hickson, who ran for 1,032 yards and 11 touchdowns. You got 8 starters on this offense with an offensive guy. I'm going upset here. Liberty's going to beat Syracuse. Sam Houston State taking on New Mexico. I almost want to go Sam Houston State. New Mexico is pretty terrible. In fact, New Mexico, their new offensive coordinator is the former Liberty offensive coordinator, and Liberty's been pretty good on offense the last few years. I'll go New Mexico in that. New Mexico's got a decent run game normally, but that might be their only win, one of their only wins of the year. You got Incarnate Ward taking on UTSA. They added JUCO quarterback Lowell Narcisse, who used to be an LSU guy. They're losing their top linebacker. I don't expect a lot out of this game. Incarnate Ward's a bad 1AA team, but UTSA is also not a very good 1A team. They're one of those teams that they just came up with a football team like 9 whatever years ago. Let me check. By the way, this magazine is like the college football Bible, you guys. This is Phil Steele's magazine right there. This is what I read. This is what I read to get prepared for you guys. All those words, even down there below it, they has stats for each of those players, the entire roster. All right, so UTSA did not have a football team till 2011, so they are a very, very young program, and yet they've already made a bowl game. In 2016, they made a bowl, which some teams haven't. Which FSU I don't think made a bowl last year, did they? No. So that being said, UTSA should win this game like 7-3 or something. All right, Campbell Camels, yep, that's their name, taking on Troy, one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Won 10 games last year, won 10 games each of the last 3 seasons. They got a new head coach. They'll be fine. Their offense, their defense is good. They got running back B.J. Smith, 1,000-yard rusher. They lost their quarterback Sawyer Smith, but Caleb Barker, they kind of play both, and they'll be good. Troy wins that one. UC Davis taking on Cal. Cal is one of the best defenses in the country. Linebacker Evan Weaver had like 150-something tackles. They got quarterback Devin Monster transferring from UCLA. They're losing their running back Patrick Laird, who's had a really good last couple of years. but I think Cal should at least win that game. Marshall taking on Virginia Military Institute. Marshall's a CUSA favorite. They're losing wide receiver Tyree Brady, but you got Isaiah Greenback, who was a freshman last year, had 15 touchdown passes. They should win that one and be, like I said, a favorite for the CUSA, for the CUSA. All right, so next is Norfolk State against Old Dominion. Old Dominion loses their quarterback Blake Carusa and their 2,000-yard receivers. They have a good linebacker back in Garner. They got 2 JUCO transfers at quarterback. I think they should win that one. They might not win very many this year, but. Then Alcorn State taking on Southern Miss. Southern Miss has 16 starters returning. Quarterback Jack Abraham had the highest completion percentage in the nation last year at 73.1% completion percentage. He was hurt part of this from like 3-4 games or whatever, but a really good season at Southern Miss. I think should win, and they'll be a CUSA favorite. Illinois State taking on Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is a MAC favorite. They got a new head coach. They got a running back, had over 1,000 yards. Quarterback Marcus Childers. Cal quarterback Ross Bowers is transferring in. They have some really good linebackers there, and actually I can pull some up for some stats. Linebacker Antonio Jones-Davis had 130 tackles, 4 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 pass breakups, and 1 quarterback hurry. And Kyle Pugh, 106 tackles and 1.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, and 4 quarterback hurries. Marcus Childers, the quarterback, he passed for 2,175, 15 touchdowns and 10 picks, and ran for 531 and 6 touchdowns. So, a good dual threat quarterback. I think Northern Illinois wins that. Monmouth is playing Western Michigan. Western Michigan is another MAC favorite. They got 17 returning starters, 10 on defense. You have a running back, Levante Bellamy, ran for 1,000 yards, ran for 1,228, 6 touchdowns. They had a quarterback, John Wastink, who started off really well, and then he got hurt the last few games, but even in the games he played, he had 16 touchdown passes to 6 interceptions, and then Caleb Ellaby came in and had 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, and did a really good job. So they're pretty deep at quarterback and a pretty deep team all around. So I think they win that. You got an interesting game here. Southern Methodist against Arkansas State. Southern Methodist has quarterback Shane Buechele transferring in from Texas. He's a Texas quarterback. And their quarterback, actually Ben Hicks, transferred to another school. But I think Shane Buechele is the better quarterback. Not just because of the whole Texas thing, but I saw him play Texas a couple years ago when he started. And he hit the deep ball better than any quarterback I've ever seen. So many times he hit deep passes for touchdowns where the guys didn't even have to put out their hand. It was almost like he handed them the ball or whatever. It just hit them right in stride. They didn't lose an ounce. And they're in a pretty good offense with Sonny Dykes, the head coach at Southern Methodist. He fits this perfectly. I think he will put up a lot of huge numbers. They're taking on Arkansas State, who's usually one of the favorites in the Sun Belt Conference. They win 8 to 10 games every year and or win or tie first year in the Sun Belt. They're losing their quarterback, Justice Hansen. He graduated, but they have a really good wide receiver in Kirk Merritt, 1,005 receiving yards. And Southern Methodist also has a really good receiver, James Prochet, who had 1,199 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns. This could be a pretty good game. It could be high scoring back and forth, but because of and technically Southern Methodist, they're both kind of starting over at quarterback, Arkansas State and Southern Methodist, but I think Southern Methodist, the quarterback situation is a little better there, so I'm going to go SMU there. But that's a really good, interesting game. I actually am very interested to watch that. Then you got a late game. You got Boise State going all the way to Florida State to play. Boise State, they had a 4-year quarterback, Brett Ripien. He graduated. They're starting over. Hank Bachmeier, I think is the guy's name. He'll be a true freshman, but he's the highest quarterback recruit Boise State has ever had. Florida State, yeah, they had a really bad year last year. They have a good offensive coordinator now, Kendall Briles, who was at Florida Atlantic the last few years. He was also at Baylor with his dad, Art Briles, when Art Briles was the coach at Baylor with when RG3 and all those guys are there. He knows how to run an offense. Boise State is one of those teams that always one of the best group of 5 teams. They win these kinds of games, and they very well could. But they got a little too much of losing 1,000-yard rusher as well. But they got a lot of nice pieces around it. It'll be a good game, but I want Boise State to win, but I think Florida State wins. But that'll be good. Nicholls taking on Kansas State. Kansas State, Bill Snyder finally retired, but they got Chris Kleiman, who was the head coach at North Dakota State the last 5 years, and he won 4 national titles there. So, and they got Kansas State lost the 1,000-yard rusher, but they have solid players. They should at least win that one. Stephen F. Austin taking on Baylor. Baylor had a nice bounce back year. They got to a bowl game. They had a good quarterback in Charlie Brewer. I expect that to be a win for Baylor. Then you got Georgia taking on Vanderbilt. Georgia, number 3 in the country. Jake Fromm, quarterback. Their running game's always good. The defense. Vanderbilt, they got a transfer Riley Neal from Ball State at quarterback there. But that should be a Georgia game. Georgia Southern LSU. So I am interested in this. A lot of my LSU friends, they're overlooking Georgia Southern, who won 10 games last year and has won 10 since they moved up to the FBS a few years ago. They've been one of the better teams in the Sun Belt. They're usually one of the top teams in the nation in rushing. And LSU, Joe Burrow came on. The quarterback came on at the end of the year. It's LSU that clearly have good players, have a good team, defense, offense, whatever. But Troy, who also from the Sun Belt, did go into LSU 2 years ago and beat them. LSU, you are an upset alert. I'm putting you on it. I still think LSU will win, but this will be way closer than you LSU fans think. Middle Tennessee State taking on Michigan. Middle Tennessee, they lost a 4-year starter, Brent Stocks. Still, he graduated. Michigan, I think they're overrated, but this still should be Michigan pretty easy. All right, the game day game of the week. Oregon at Auburn. Oregon, Justin Herbert's a Heisman candidate. They got 10 starters on offense returning. Auburn has one of the best defensive lines in the country. The coach, Gus Malzahn for Auburn, he's an offensive guy. He's going to be calling the plays this year. He kind of relinquished that, and their offense has been pretty terrible the last few years. But he's coming back. That'll be a really good game. I think Oregon wins it. It's in a neutral site field in Texas. But that's where game day will be. Miami of Ohio at Iowa. Miami of Ohio they haven't been very good in a while in the MAC. Sometimes they get a bowl or whatever. They're not like when Ben Roethlisberger was there in 2003. That was a long time ago. Iowa is a possible Big Ten favorite, especially on their side. They have a Nathan Stanley at quarterback. I think Iowa should win that. Missouri, Wyoming. Missouri depends on what they're fighting for. They got Kelly Bryant, the Clemson quarterback, transferring in. Wyoming lost one of the best running backs in the country. Let's see, who was it? Wyoming running back Nico Evans had 1,325 rushing yards. They have a pretty good quarterback in Sean Chambers, who was a freshman and ran for 100 yards in 3 straight games. And Wyoming did go 6-6. They didn't get selected for a bowl game, but I think this is Missouri. Missouri, they got pretty good talent. Their offense should be decent. It's an opening day game. Missouri should have that. Abilene Christian taking on North Texas. North Texas is USA favorite. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Mason Fine. They have normally one of the best offenses and passing offenses in the country. Mason Fine last year, he passed for 3,793 yards, 27 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions. They had a receiver, Rico Bussey, 68 catches, 1,017 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And DeAndre Torrey, running back, ran for 977 and 15 rushing touchdowns. So this should be a blowout, and as they go on to another probably very, very successful season. All right, a really big game in the ACC, Virginia and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh actually played in the ACC championship game last year. Virginia was right there with them to the last couple of games of the year. Virginia has Bryce Perkins, one of the best dual threat running backs in the country. In fact, there's a little stat. Bryce Perkins, a lot of people don't really realize about him is... So there were only 2 quarterbacks in the nation last year that passed for over 2,500 yards and ran for 900 yards. Kyler Murray was one, and Bryce Perkins was the other one. He passed for 2,680 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 picks, and ran for 923 and 9 touchdowns. They are losing a 1,000-yard rusher and a 1,000-yard receiver. But they should have a strong year this year. Pittsburgh is losing 2 1,000-yard rushers. But it still should be a pretty good game. Pretty strong defenses both. I'll give the edge here to Virginia though. Get a leg up on that ACC, on a run for an ACC title. All right, Louisiana Tech taking on Texas. Texas number 10, Sam Ehlinger, one of the best quarterbacks maybe in the country. Louisiana Tech has a really good receiver, Adrian Hardy, at over 1,100 yards receiving. Jamar Smith, a decent quarterback, 15 touchdowns last year to 10 picks. But they lose defensive end Jalen Ferguson. Louisiana Tech does, who set an NCAA record for sacks in a career. He had 45 in his career. This may be close for like a quarter to maybe half or whatever. But Texas, if Texas is as good as people think they might be, Texas should win pretty easy. Houston Baptist taking on UTEP. UTEP is terrible. They really have nothing to talk about, but it's against a 1AA team. This may be their only win of the season for UTEP. Arkansas Pine Bluff taking on TCU. TCU kind of had a down year. I expect them to kind of come back. They got Alex Delton, a quarterback from Kansas State, transferred into there. They have one of the best maybe receivers in the country, and Jalen Reagor, one of the best all-around playmakers. Jalen Reagor. So we got TCU there. Grambling against UL Monroe. Louisiana Monroe, a lot of people, they're from the Sun Belt. People don't really pay attention to them. They did get bowl eligible last year. They went 6-6. They were not selected, but they have their guys back. They have a quarterback, Caleb Evans, who had 16 touchdown passes and 12 picks. And they got 15 starters on a team returning. They could maybe at least become bowl eligible again. So I think they beat Grambling. Weber State taking on San Diego State. San Diego State, always one of the best teams in the Mountain West. Juwan Washington, I was touting him really high last year coming back. He missed 4 games, and he still ran for 999 yards. Yeah, he missed 1,000 yards by a yard. If he would have... Man, I wish they could have kept him in like one more play. And actually, I think he technically, I think in the bowl game, had 1,002, and then they ran him one more time, and he lost 3 yards. So he had it. So basically, 1,000-yard rusher. They are a Mountain West favorite for sure, San Diego State. And they should win that one. New Mexico State taking on Washington State. Washington State is losing their quarterback Gardner Minshew, but they have a guy, Gage Gubrud. I think he's transferring in from Eastern Washington. Mike Leach knows how to run an offense, plug and play. They should win that one. New Mexico State has decent quarterback Josh Adkins, but Washington State should take it pretty easy. All right, Southern Utah taking on UNLV. UNLV is losing their best running back in Lex Thomas. They have a decent quarterback, Armani Rogers, coming. They're a weird team, UNLV. We don't know, but they should at least win this. And then the final game of Saturday evening, Fresno State at USC. Fresno State is losing their quarterback Marcus McMaryion, but USC has a new offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell from Texas Tech fame. He was offensive coordinator last year's North Texas, I believe it was. They're changing an offense. They have JT Daniels was a freshman last year. They have all the playmakers. It's USC. Fresno State, though, could come out here and they do sometimes do that. They will upset people. But I think USC might be a pretty decent team this year, at least offensively. So I got USC in that one. So there's all my Saturday previews. Maybe next time I'll give you a little more stats and be a little more concise, maybe talk a little better. But just check in next week and watch out for all my other videos. Peace.